It has been 5 years since the first Joker movie came out, and we know that film was loosely based on classics such as Taxi Driver and Kings of Comedy, and that movie was awarded Best Score of the Year at the Academy Awards. Joaquin Phoenix won Best Male Performance, and I'm still personally shocked that a film based on the Joker without Batman grossed over $1 billion. Well, after the director and the star of the film said, we don't want to make a sequel, this film doesn't need a sequel, well, here we are talking about the sequel to The Joker featuring Harley Quinn, and it's a musical. Now the question is this film good? Is it great? Is it a hot damn mess? Well, we'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler-free review of The Joker 2, Folie à Deux. But first, let's get the conversations going in the comments below. Let me know, number one, if you've seen the first Joker, what were your thoughts about that? And then also, what did you think about them announcing a sequel? But ultimately, once you've seen Joker 2, we got to talk about it in the comments. What worked, what didn't work, which film did you prefer over the other? And what did you think of the ending of The Joker 2? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. So I have said it many times on this channel. Back when I reviewed the first Joker, I've done watch-alongs for that movie. I think that movie is great. But when they announced a sequel and they said it was going to be a musical, and then as it got closer to releasing, it says it's not a musical, and all the stuff leading up to the movie left me confused on what this movie is going to be, but it also left me very intrigued. Well, last night I got the opportunity to see it at a fan screening, and I want to start off by saying this. This movie, the only way you can see this was in IMAX. So I had to pay $30 to see this movie, and I'm sure everyone else in the theater, unless you had like a special pass, whatever, had to pay almost $30, plus if they brought someone else with them. So $30 movie ticket to see this film, and I'm just going to start off by saying this. There had to be at least from my vision and where I was sitting, I saw maybe 5 or 6 people walking out of this movie, about halfway through this movie. What does that say about the film? Well, let's get into it, and again, spoiler-free, kicking things off and talking about my positives first. First thing I gotta get out of the way, there is no denying that Todd Phillips, who was mostly known for his career of being the guy that tackles a lot of comedy, some that I really enjoyed, and when it came to making the first Joker, and now including this movie, this man knows how to shoot and make a beautiful-looking film. Todd Phillips and his DP Lauren Sher really lean into the beauty of the hopelessness of the mental space within Arthur's mind in such a way that frames the sadness with such creative endeavors and beautiful colors and extremely well-crafted shots that is just undeniably stunning. Look, I just thought that all the production elements in this film were outstanding, and it should be because this film cost $200 million to make, and you see it, it's on the screen, it's beautiful, and we'll get to the musical elements here in a second, but even those moments, when we cut to the musical moments, they look pretty damn good. We get this grandiose style approach to certain musical elements. It was well choreographed scenes, and of course, Lady Gaga's vocal style and her range is really elevated in those elements of the film. Now, performance-wise, I don't think this is an Oscar-worthy outing for Joaquin Phoenix, but nonetheless a worthy outing for one of the best actors working today. This time around, Joaquin Phoenix gets to dive a little bit deeper into the distinct differences between Arthur and the Joker, and what comes with that is more of Joaquin exploring Arthur's pain, as well as his suffering from his past and confronting his decisions from the first film. Now, within this movie, we also get to see what happiness looks like for Arthur, but in his version of the Joker, and that comes with a very different understanding of the character that I thought Joaquin Phoenix did a good job in conveying. Now, I don't have much good to say about Gaga's character, but I thought she was good in the film and she gave more than what she was given. She definitely elevated her character's lack of self and depth and really tries to find something interesting to bring to the character to life in a way that makes sense to this narrative. But of course, I have to praise, she sounds amazing in the musical numbers, but again, we'll touch more on Lady Gaga's character Lee a little bit later in this breakdown. Now, lastly, I found the film to be at its absolute best in the second half of the film and at parts in the third act, but again, in the second half, there is a courtroom scene that brings a certain character back from the first film, and seeing Arthur being confronted by that character really worked within that moment to me, and to me, that was top to bottom the best written scene and the best scene of the entire film. Now, to get into my criticisms, now I don't want to make this into a rant, I don't want to sit here bashing this movie, but all I'll say is when it comes to my criticisms, I just felt while I was watching this film, it felt like it was bigger than what it actually is. It felt like it thought it was smarter than it actually is, and what it was trying to convey was so important, but to me, it just kind of felt hollow. So let's begin. This film takes the first 45 minutes to an hour to have anything of substance or value to why it exists. Literally in the first half, to me, it felt like the director and co-writer Todd Phillips took the first act of this film and made it in response to the negativity and the criticisms and the Reddit comments of how people felt about the first Joker. To me, this first half of the film is a expose from Todd Phillips of explaining what the first film meant to him. Again, it just felt like he wanted to address or explain or to justify the why, the what, the how of the first Joker. And to me, that resulted in making it a very redundant and pointless and frustrating experience in the first hour of this movie. The ambiguity of the first film is one of the reasons I enjoyed that movie, but this tries to address so many elements of that film and defines its message and what it meant. And that is the anchor of the first half of this movie. And I felt that the first half was just flat out boring. Now, I'll admit, when Lady Gaga's character Lee is injected into the story, it finds its momentum, it finds its purpose in a sense, and the film gets into its main focus, and that is Arthur and him navigating through the battle or the conflict between him and the Joker. But my issue lies within the use of Lady Gaga's character as Harley Quinn, or as they call her in this film, Lee. I don't know if things were just left on a cutting room floor or if Todd Phillips made changes at the last minute, but I can't for the life of me understand why they limited her character's motivations and her development and made her feel more like a plot device than an actual person with actual purpose. Now, the movie does have the depiction of Harley Quinn characteristics at points of the film, but in general, she's just relegated to waking up the Joker, and once things are revealed and she eventually sees how things are, and how they handle that moment was just an awful conclusion to her character's point of being in the film. Again, this has nothing to do with, I want to call her Stephanie, her real name, but this has nothing to do with Lady Gaga's performance. Like, I think she's a fine actress. Like, I really enjoyed her in A Star Is Born. I've seen her in the American Horror Story. She was one of the better parts in The House of Gucci. She's a good actress. Nothing against her. It's against Todd Phillips and the co-writer and how they wrote the character so poorly and honestly just made the character feel pointless at the end of the day. Now, within the same realm of what Lee brings to her character and how Arthur expresses himself within moments he can't communicate naturally through, in comes the musical element of this film. Now, I'm going to say it right now, I might not look it, but your boy loves a good musical. Like, in more recent memory, I think of, just mention A Star Is Born, somewhat of a musical, but The Star Is Born. I think of Into the Heights. I think of Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. I think of, I know a lot of people hate this movie, I absolutely love it. That's La La Land, but also like Sing Street. Like, I like a good musical because it makes you feel good. It brings out this joyous nature to you when it's executed well. And another thing I like about a good musical, the build-up. We build to certain moments. We build to the song and dance. It expresses the characters in such a way that it makes it exciting. But now talking about the Joker, when we get the musical elements in this film, and every time we would cut to the musical elements, it completely took me out of the movie. What I mean by that is when the film would actually have something interesting to say or an interesting character moment or a character confronting something within its own narrative, it would then cut to this song and dance, and it upset me because it felt like a scapegoat, or it felt like Todd was just distracted or too afraid to express the depths or complexities going on in Arthur's mind. And again, to me, 9 times out of 10, the musical elements did not work for me at all. And on top of that, there was just way too many damn songs. And the thing about the songs, they weren't bad songs, but they played the whole damn song. And listen, this movie comes in at 2 hours and like 18 minutes, almost 2.5 hours. It felt like, you can't tell me, you can't prove to me, scientifically prove to me that this movie wasn't almost 3.5 hours. Like, it felt so long. It felt so redundant. It really affected the pacing. On top of how I talked about the first act feeling boring, it was slow at points. And I'm telling you all, this movie was just not sure of what it wanted to be. Last thing I'll say before wrapping up, I found most of the performances to be good. but none of the supporting characters truly have much of an arc or payoffs, especially when it comes to the main characters' interactions. I think about when Arthur's in the prison and the guards, and like they have like certain characters that just don't go anywhere, especially, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, there's a lot of characters in this film. To me, it felt like Todd Phillips and the creators made certain characters to combat criticisms of the first film. Like there are certain characters that I feel like are literally written to respond to certain people, how they felt about the first movie. So I thought a lot of the supporting characters didn't have much of an overall payoff in the film. But I say all that to say this. Again, performances, I don't think anyone brought a bad performance except for one particular character and actor. They have, and this isn't a spoiler, this is in the trailer, and you can look it up, it's on IMDb. They tell you that Harvey Dent is in this film, and if you know the Batman lore, you know who Harvey Dent becomes and all that stuff. I'll just say this when it comes to Harvey Dent. I felt like it was a mixture of bad acting, but also a bad direction to how they want to portray the character. Without giving too much away, the way they use Harvey Dent and the way the actor portrays Harvey Dent was like he was in a completely different movie. Like he was just like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you modeling? Why are you putting on like your face card? Like what's going on in these scenes? Like he was so distracting to me. And that actually kind of bleeds into one more thing I want to mention as far as criticisms. When we get to the courtroom drama scenes, and again, this film is a courtroom drama. It's a rom-com. It's a psychological, it's a mess. When we get to the courtroom drama scenes, the actual like court, and obviously I'm not a lawyer, but I watch courtroom dramas, the courtroom jargon and the back and forth, the compelling nature of what can come with a courtroom drama. Woo, this film fell flat on all those, except for the one scene that I mentioned in the courtroom. That scene is excellent, but everything else in the courtroom, it just felt so generic. And last thing I want to say before moving on, and I might have a further discussion on this, and maybe a spoiler discussion might spawn out of this, and that is in regards to the ending of the film. Again, no spoilers. So what I'll say is, the third act, in the lead up to certain events, the climax of the film, to me, and the final shot of this film, it felt like a studio note. It felt like someone suggested this to Todd Phillips, and then Todd Phillips said, "Okay, I'll put that in the movie, but I'll add a little spin to it." And I'll just say this when it comes to the ending, it almost was borderline offensive, and not to me. I'm not offended by movies, but I'm referring to just offensive to the sense of its own story, its own character, its own narrative and development of following Arthur for these last two films, and how this movie ends just was bad. It's a bad ending to, quite frankly, a bad movie. Before I give you all my overall thoughts, and if you're still here, I thank you for making it to this point in the video. If you could, and if you enjoy yourself, like or disagree, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, consider subscribing to the channel. Overall, I think I've said everything I need to say, but I'll just add this. Regardless of the success of the first film, the creative team and the lead star of the first Joker should have followed their instincts and not have made this movie. But since they did make the movie, there's no doubt it's a beautifully made, well put together piece of art. But unfortunately, this art doesn't provide any value or substance in its own artistic narrative or understanding of what it's trying to achieve and or convey in a meaningful or impactful manner. Joker 2 is definitely a film that I think will not appeal to the mass audience, but also I think it's going to be forgotten, which is a shame because I actually think there is a good idea somewhere in the process of making this, but got lost somewhere in the wind. I'm going to give Joker 2, Folie a 2 out of 5. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Joker 2. I just may do a spoiler review just to kind of talk more about the ending and how you all feel about it. So keep an eye out for that video. But more importantly, once you've seen the film, please share your thoughts in the comments. I'm talking about your highs, your lows, favorite moments, least favorite moments. And again, once I'm editing this video, I'll decide if I want to make a spoiler review. But at the end of the day, agree or disagree with me on my commentary of this movie. I do truly thank you all for just giving me the chance of reviewing this film and watching this review and making it to this point of video. I really appreciate you all. So thank you again. And always remember, you're awesome. Stay safe. And I'll catch you all on the next video.
Yeah.